Let's say you want to go camping, but you've only got one night. What is your optimal one night or overnight backpacking trip? I like to talk about some of the things that I enjoy. Let's get into it. Overnight camping, one night, that's all you got. One of the things that I really want to go do when I'm on an overnight backpacking trip is to see some sort of iconic feature or place out in the wilderness that I'm in. For example, waterfalls. Waterfalls are some of my favorite. Get to go out and see a waterfall or a view or a mountaintop or something that gives you a reason to be there. It's kind of like the climactic event. I want to go there to see something. So that's first on my list. I want to have something that I'm really seeing that's important. Waterfalls, man. You can't beat them. Another very important part of an overnight camp is making sure that the weather is good. Right now it's 63 degrees, going down to the mid 40s. Sun's out, not a cloud in the sky. So you got to pick your battles. And if I'm doing an overnight, I'm not going to fight the weather. I'm going to choose an overnight when the weather is like this. That's essential for my checklist of overnight backpacking. That is good weather. And I've got it right now. It puts a little spring in my step and makes me feel like being out in the woods. Now, if it was 30 degrees right now and sleeting snow and hail or tornadoes or something like that that we sometimes get here in the Southeast, maybe not the weekend I want to do an overnight. But right now, it's absolutely glorious. Another thing I like to have is a good hiking companion with me. On this little trip, I've got my son with me, and that's always fun to hang out with him. You never know when those days will be over. You know, they're off to school and things like that. I've already seen that with my older son. So I got my youngest son with me this time. But good friends that have the same kind of thoughts and interests in the backcountry, that's a lot of fun. That makes for a good overnight backpacking trip. I mean, it's not to say that I don't like to be alone from time to time, but yeah, it's always cool to have somebody with you to hang out and enjoy all the things that nature has to offer. Another great thing about going on a backpacking trip overnight is that you have good gear with you. So I've got everything I need for an overnight, but one thing I do have is several layers of clothes, including this fleece. Taking it off now because it got a little warm, but later on I'll probably put it back on. So it's always important and essential to have all the layers that you need for the trip, because there's nothing worse than going on an overnight and being super cold when you forgot a layer. Yeah, that's another thing you gotta have, or at least I want to have for backpacking, is good gear. Another thing on my checklist for a good overnight hike is a good trail. I want to be fairly far away from the trailhead. I don't like to camp close to a trailhead. You never know what you're going to get at a trailhead. You want to have some peace and quiet. That's why you come out for a backpacking trip anyway. So if you're going to do an overnight, I want to be a few miles, maybe 5 miles away from any trailhead. If you can do it, if you can find a trail that'll give you that kind of peace and quiet. Yeah, I want to have a good trail, a very well-maintained trail if it can get it, but I also want to be very far away from a trailhead if I can, because I love to hear the sounds of nature in the middle of the night and in the morning, and not somebody yelling and screaming and yelling at their kids and all that other stuff that goes along with being young. I think that sometimes the best trips are the overnight trips that are the spur of the moment, that you just decide, hey, what if we went camping tonight? It kind of creates this anticipation and a nervousness and just frantic tension to get everything together. You're not sure if you got everything together. You're not sure if you're missing something. It's all part of the adventure. It's all fun and games, coming out, not knowing what you got to improvise. Spontaneous, just spur of the moment trips. That's what it's all about. A big thing on my checklist for an overnight backpacking trip has got to be a great campsite. And I think we found one here. Behind us, there's a waterfall. You can hear the sound of water all night, so that'll keep my anxiety down from hearing the animals run around. And there's an established fire ring here, so that will be helpful. And we don't have to recreate a fire ring, which you don't want to do. This is already here, and there was already firewood, so we don't have to go find a whole bunch of firewood. We will have to find some. And then you got to have a good flat spot for your overnight backpacking trip. And I think we have it far enough away from the fire ring. We won't have any sparks just flying around, putting holes in our tent. I actually really like a good flat space for my tent. And though I don't have a perfect place here, it's in between. Could cause issues if water was coming down the hill, but because it's such good weather, this is a flat spot, and that's what I want for my backpacking tent placement for a good campsite. And then there is a nice creek that's flowing below us, and that makes for a good campsite. On my checklist of overnight, one night backpacking trips, a campsite is one of the top things, and I think we have it here. Another thing on my checklist for a good overnight, one night backpacking trip would probably be a chair. I don't take chairs on every trip I go on, especially if I'm doing 15 miles a day or doing multiple days. But for an overnight, a great luxury item. In fact, any luxury item that can fit into your pack for overnight. Maybe you're bringing a steak or something to cook over the fire. All those luxury items that you can't take on long trips. Nice sitting by the fire in a chair.
Yeah, that feels great.
I would say that definitely on my list for a good overnight backpacking trip would have to be a campfire. There's something very soothing, serene, peaceful, all those adjectives that fit for a campfire. I'm in my chair, I'm about to cook dinner. Everything seems right with the world for a one-night trip when listening to the owls come out or a coyote, sitting by the stream, listening to the water fall from behind me in a box canyon, and watching that fire and feeling the warmth as it comes towards you. Overnight backpacking trip, gotta have a fire. One of the last things that I'll say about a great overnight backpacking trip, one of the best things for me is food. So I have a chicken Alfredo pasta, a peak meal. These things are my favorite. Sometimes on an overnight trip, just a one-night trip, I'll bring some sort of steak or ribeye to cook over the fire. Tonight I was in a lazy mood, so I just got the peak refuel, boil up some water, put it on, and quickly I'll have my dinner. Real tasty. Once you get to camp and you've gotten everything set up, campfire all done, gotta have some good food. Well, that'll about do it for this episode of As the Crow Flies Hiking, and an overnight checklist for the things that I enjoy on a good one-night backpacking trip. I know I missed a lot of stuff, so I hope that you will comment below. Leave me a comment, let me know what I left out. What is some of the things that you have to have on your checklist for your backpacking trip when it's just a one-night, overnight backpacking trip. Well, thank you guys for watching, and I guess I'll eat my dinner and go to sleep and get up and head out. I'll see you on the next adventure. Oh, I almost forgot, on my campaign for the perfect backpacking trip, gotta have a little breakfast, maybe some strawberry granola, a little coffee, gotta have some coffee, and restart the fire for the next morning. That should do it. I think that's the icing on top of the cake. That would be good too. I didn't bring any cake.